So, France's new Prime Minister, François Bayrou, just delivered a speech that basically put the entire nation on notice. He painted this really stark picture of the country's economic future. And in this breakdown, we're going to dig into his diagnosis, look at the, frankly, shocking numbers he presented, and unpack the huge political gamble he's making to try and force a national moment of truth. All right, let's get into it. Yeah, Bayrou didn't start with any pleasantries. Nope, he kicked things off with what was basically a declaration of emergency. He used these exact words to frame his entire speech, making it crystal clear from the get-go that this was not business as usual. In his view, France is at this critical moment, a moment of hesitation and real trouble, and he thinks it's a moment that demands absolute clarity. So, what exactly is the core of the problem? Well, according to the Prime Minister, it's something he calls France's dangerous paradox. And what that means is this idea that the country is, a world beater and a laggard at the same time. It's brilliant in some things, but, well, critically weak in others. Okay, so Bayrou explains this using a really powerful metaphor, a pyramid. Think about it. At the very, very top of the pyramid, France is just incredible. I mean, they're building rockets, satellites, nuclear power plants, the best aircraft in the world. They totally dominate luxury goods. But then you look at the base of the pyramid, the everyday stuff, your home appliances, consumer electronics, and that's where the country is really falling behind. And that's leading to a massive trade deficit. So they're super strong at the top, but the foundation, it's weak. And this whole paradox, it isn't just about manufacturing. There are other really worrying signs. You've got the education system, which, despite huge amounts of money being poured into it, is slipping in the international rankings, especially in the basics, reading and math. And then there's youth unemployment, is at a staggering 19%. And the craziest part is, businesses are saying they can't even find young people to hire. It's a real disconnect. But look, as serious as all those issues are, Bayrou argues that they're all overshadowed by one single immediate threat, an existential one, the one danger that he says could bring everything else just crashing down, and that is the risk of being completely overwhelmed by debt. And to really understand why he's so concerned, we've got to look at the numbers. And honestly, they are absolutely staggering. This abstract idea of national debt has become a very real, clear, and present danger that's just growing by the minute. So check this out. Over the last 20 years, and this is under governments from both the left and the right, by the way, France's public debt has ballooned by 2 trillion euros. I mean, Bayrou himself admits a number that big is almost impossible to wrap your head around. It's an astronomical figure. So he broke it down for everyone. For 20 straight years, the national debt has gone up by 12 million euros. And that's not per day. It's not per week. That's every single hour of every single day and every single night. That is the relentless pace of the borrowing that he says has become, in his words, chronic. And here's the real kicker. Here's the consequence of all that borrowing. This year, for the very first time, the single biggest line item in the national budget, it isn't education, it's not defense, it's the annual repayment on the national debt. We're talking 66 billion euros. And the worst part? It's on track to get bigger every single year if nothing changes. So this is how France ends up in what economists call a vicious circle. It's that terrible situation where you have to borrow new money just to pay the interest on your old loans. You're basically borrowing from one credit card to pay off another. And it is a trap that is almost impossible to escape once you fall into it. And to really drive this point home, he stressed that this isn't just some theoretical economic problem. No, this is a nightmare scenario that has actually played out in other developed countries, and it's had devastating consequences for regular people. And to prove his point, he just rattles off a list of countries. You've got major economies like Canada and Sweden back in the 90s, and then more recently, European neighbors like Greece, Italy, and Spain. All of them got caught in this exact same debt trap. And the result? It was always the same: forced, painful austerity measures. We're talking things like cutting pensions by 30% or slashing public sector wages by 15%. Now, for Bayrou, this is not just about money. It's about something much bigger: sovereignty. He uses this incredibly powerful analogy, saying that when a country loses control of its finances and has to rely on its lenders, well, that's like being militarily conquered. You're just not free to make your own choices anymore. And if you're sitting there thinking, well, that can never happen to a major global power, he points directly to the United Kingdom just a couple of years ago. Remember Prime Minister Liz Truss? She announced a budget that the financial markets just did not like. They thought it was irresponsible, confidence completely evaporated, and in just 42 days, her government collapsed. It's a pretty stark reminder of just how fast the people who lend you money can start calling the shots. So, faced with this really dire diagnosis, Beirut believes the country is just stuck. The whole political debate is broken. So what's his solution? It's a really high-risk maneuver he calls a clarification. So what's the specific problem he's trying to solve with this? He argues that instead of debating the why, the absolute necessity of a rescue plan, the whole country has gotten bogged down arguing over the how. Arguing about specific unpopular measures like cutting a public holiday here or there. The conversation has been completely derailed, and it's led to total political gridlock. So his strategy is to force a simple, two-step process. Step 1 is about the diagnosis. He wants to force everyone to answer one single question first. Do you, or do you not, agree that there is a grave financial emergency facing the nation? That's it. And only after that question is settled, he says, can we move on to step 2 and actually debate the specific solutions. And the tool he's using to force this question, well, it's pretty much the political equivalent of the nuclear option, a formal confidence vote in parliament. I mean, he is literally putting his government's survival on the line just to compel every single party to go on the record. Is there a crisis? Yes or no? So this all sets up a pretty dramatic showdown. Beirut is framing this whole thing not just as some political vote, but as a truly defining moment for the entire future of France. And he makes this really powerful moral appeal. He suggests this isn't about politics at all, but about responsibility. He says these tough choices have to be made for the people who can't even speak in this debate, the ones who don't vote yet. He's talking about the children. The whole goal, he says, is to avoid leaving the next generation a world completely crushed by debt. So in the end, Beirut has clearly decided that the biggest risk of all is just doing nothing. By forcing this vote, he's taking an absolutely massive gamble. And the big question is, will it create the national clarity he needs to actually do something? Or is this high-stakes showdown going to trigger the very financial chaos and political instability he warns against? The answer to that question is going to shape France for years to come.